vaccine and testing verification processes. We have Mary Beth Carrillo and Rachel Banks, Dr. Rachel Banks. Thank you both for coming. So Mary Beth, you are up.
All right, thank you so much, Chair Dexter and members of the committee. So I'm Mary Beth Carrillo, and I'm the Senior Director for Health Informatics at the American Immunization Registry Association. I did bring some visuals. I don't know if we have time to get through those. If someone could bring those up, great. Thank you. So, and I'll move through these quickly because I know we have very limited time. If we move to the next slide, I'll just hit on a few key points. One is who is AIRA, or the American Immunization Registry Association? What is consumer access and how is it different from vaccine credentialing? A little bit about our support of Smart Health Cards framework. And then if we have time at the end, I'm happy to stay on if there are questions. So in my next slide, I'll just cover briefly what AIRA is. So we are a member organization, and our mission is to promote and support the use of immunization information to ensure healthy communities. We do that through collaboration with our public and private partners, primarily through our immunization information systems, but also through a broad set of EHRs, HIEs, clinicians. We also measure our IS to make sure they're compliant with standards. And then finally, we provide a lot of support through technical assistance to our systems to ensure that immunization data is flowing and gets to where it needs to be. On the next slide, I'll just very briefly hit on the role of an IS, and really the goal is to create one consolidated record for every individual within a jurisdiction. This is to get it back out to clinicians at the point of care so they can immunize with the right vaccines at the right time. And then it also supports the functions of immunization programs through management of vaccine inventory and coverage rates. On the next slide, I just have a quick map that shows there is an IIS. Oh, thank you. That's a little bit more about the technical details of what we do. But on the next slide, there's a quick map that shows there is an IIS in every state in the nation, as well as several cities and counties. And then on the next slide, I just want to hit on the fact that the need for individuals having access to their immunization records or their families' records is not new. We've often needed this for employment, for schools, for summer camp, for travel. What is new is the volume of individuals who need their records, and then how can we do this securely, efficiently, and equitably with an eye towards health equity and make sure that we're not interfering with access to records. So on the next slide, I just show a map of which jurisdictions across the country are currently offering consumer access. So we have about half the jurisdictions in the country that offer this today. And then you'll see that light green color that shows many states are in the process of planning to offer this. And Oregon is one of those states that's in the planning stage right now. On the next slide, I'll cover just very briefly a little bit about definitions. So when we talk about consumer access, we're really talking about the process of making sure an individual can get direct access to their immunization records, or in some cases, their family members' immunization records. Digital vaccine credentials take that one step further by offering a smartphone app or a QR code, something that's shareable and electronic that can be on a screen or printed to capture that immunization record. And then finally, there's this newer concept of the Smart Health Cards framework that really provides an open source and a non-proprietary standard for how those digital vaccine credentials can be delivered. On the next slide, I'll just talk a little bit more about that. For the immunization information systems, they are one issuer, not the only issuer, but one issuer of these digital vaccine credentials. Those are shared with the holder, who is typically the consumer, who then decides who they want to share that with. That could be an airline, that could be an entertainment venue like a Timbers game, it could be a restaurant, and that person then verifies that record. So this really establishes an open source way that records can be shared. Because it's open source and non-proprietary, AIRA has come out in support of this Smart Health Cards framework. So on the next slide, I just share a statement of support that we came up with, that we worked with on our members across the country, that really says this doesn't have to be the only way that consumers can get access to their immunization records and their digital credentials, but we encourage every IS to adopt this as one common way to ensure, from a health equity perspective and an access perspective, that those records are available to consumers when they need them. So how are we doing with implementation across the country? If you flip to the next slide, I'll just hit on the fact that At this point, at least 9 jurisdictions offer smart health cards, and then more than 20 jurisdictions are working on implementation, including Oregon. And so from the AIRA perspective, we really want to support this and ensure that consumers can get access to those consolidated records where they need them and share them with who they want to share them with. So on the next slide, I do have my contact information. I'm happy to field any questions or follow-up emails if any come out of today's hearing. So thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And those are great slides. Dr. Rachel Banks, you're up next.
Thank you, Chair Prusak, Vice Chairs Hayden, Chair Dexter, and Vice Chairs Prusak and Hayden, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Rachel Banks. I use she, her, and hers. I'm the Public Health Director for Oregon Health Authority. Pleasure to be here with you all today. I also have a couple of visuals. It's great to follow Mary Beth, who gave the overview of the technology, and I will walk you through what we've done in the process to develop our technology here in Oregon and what you can expect in the coming months. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, it's really 3 sort of steps. What we'd have is a user who would request to get their vaccine records using things like name, date of birth, telephone number, email. They would receive a QPR code of a smart health card, as you see the scanned there. And then we have a business or an entity that would verify where the user of the information would share that with the business or entity wanting to verify that they are vaccinated. Next slide, please. So one of the things that's been extremely important to us, and I appreciated the mention of equity in this technology, is to really do a thorough community outreach and engagement process. And we've done that in 3 phases. So our initial phase was to meet with community groups. We met with culturally specific groups in English, Spanish, as well as those in the disability community, and to really understand what were the concerns and how could we best roll this out, as well as talking with previous or other states who had done this to understand their lessons learned, kind of what they wish they would have done in the planning. We heard a number of things and concerns, particularly around security, around technology, perhaps discrimination. So what about those folks who didn't have access to technology? And also that community wanted to continue to be engaged in the process as we rolled this technology out. We're currently in phase 2. We've gathered all of the feedback from phase 1 and used that to really map out our process and to determine our timeline and to make some decisions around rollout. So we're in phase 2, which is the demonstration phase and the listening sessions, which we have scheduled for this month to go back out and do that community testing and feedback with the product so that we can continue to understand, A, how to build our help desk functions, what are the sort of corresponding communications that need to go out, and how to make this as user-friendly as possible. And then our phase 3 will be really rolling out the technology, including a roadshow for businesses, for communities. We plan to have this in multiple languages all at the same time, as well as testing for accessibility standards. Next slide, please. So just an overview of what the project entails. There's the design and development, building the infrastructure, getting all of the environments right. Of course, that's been in the works. There's building out the help desk function. That's one of the lessons learned from other states. We will continue to leverage 211 as that's a resource in our community, as well as build out our Alert IIS, which is standing up a help desk. Those are the folks who are content experts to help people as they need to make sure they match the information and whatnot. We just talked about the community assessment or community engagement and accessibility, spending a lot of time there, as you heard, and then ensuring that our policies include QPR codes as a valid form of verifying one's vaccination status. Next slide, please. So this is the overarching timeline. Much work has been done in terms of securing funding and doing that initial outreach, obviously moving through our contracting process and some of those behind the scenes work. We're moving forward into the community engagement with the demonstrations, continuing the development based on community feedback, usability, developing communications and messaging. Our overall will clearly work through the new year in terms of continuing that testing and communications, and intend to launch in March. That timeline could be pushed up really as long as we ensure that we will continue to have that community engagement and testing process with both community and businesses. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So committee members and all, thank you so much for your patience and for sticking it out today. I know we are over time. If anyone has a question that they'd like to ask now, otherwise we will once again ask you to submit them in writing. And I don't see any hands. So thank you. It's exciting and it's actually really interesting. I didn't realize how far along you already were. So I really appreciate the update. And we will, with that, close an informational meeting, and I will adjourn our meeting today for the COVID-19 Special Committee. Thanks so much, everyone.